Welcome to Dating History, a podcast where every week we talk about a male historical figure and figure out what would it be like to date this guy. I'm Annalisa Burns.
And I'm Katie Massey. This week, our Bachelor of the Week is none other than Albert Einstein, prodigious genius, aspiring polygamist, and probably the guy who ghosted you after explaining time dilation.
100%.
So to get started, who was Albert Einstein? I think everybody knows him as the guy who invented or came up with the theory of relativity, but probably not everybody knows exactly what that means. Mm-hmm. Luckily, we're here to explain it.
Two experts in the theory of relativity.
Let's go back to the very beginning, though, as always, to start with his birthday.
His birthday. He's a Pisces.
Albert Einstein was born on March 14th in 1879 in Germany. He was the older brother of his younger sister who went by the name of Maya, and he was a slow talker as a child. It took him a long time to begin talking to people, and he would recite what he was planning on saying under his breath several times before he talked, which I personally find to be deeply endearing. It also meant that he was kind of like a spacey kid. He was often lost in thought, and it meant that he had kind of a slow start into his academic life.
Yeah, I feel like it's been said many times that Albert Einstein was a bad student in school, but like not exactly he wasn't failing his classes.
Right. He wasn't actually like a, bad student in the actual studying, but he wasn't exactly somebody he wasn't a pleasure to have in class.
I was not a pleasure to have in class either. I totally can relate.
All geniuses are.
No, I hope so. I hope that's true.
Something that I think was interesting is that he credited being a slow developer at the beginning of his life with being a physicist, because he said that a lot of children learn about the world very young and they take what they've learned for granted. And he said because he was older, when he was starting to wonder about certain things like physics or how gravity works and all of those things, because he was a bit older, he surmised or mused that was part of why he found it.
That's so funny that he's like psychoanalyzing himself.
I know.
He's like, my inner child was dealing with this because of the genius that I am. And he was like explaining. I mean, that's pretty interesting that he had that kind of introspection.
Well, one of the interesting things about Einstein, and I think something that we're going to continue to talk about in this podcast, is that he was really famous during his own life.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of similarly to Ben Franklin, but much, much more so, because it was later on and there was more of the concept of celebrity.
He was kind of the Justin Bieber of his time.
Yeah, I think that's a one-to-one comparison. Yeah. He was like the Justin Bieber of his time, right?
Justin Bieber.
He really would get mobbed when he went places. He'd get recognized on trains. And so I think that people would ask him about his own life. And so he started to have answers about why he was such a genius. But before all of that, he was a slow talker. He was very devoted, or at least his younger sister was very devoted to him. And she was supposed to be like one of the great loves of his life. Sounds weird, but like a great emotional soulmate for him, which orange flag or sort of camo flag if a guy is so close with his sister.
Yeah. So like we know about mama's boys, but like brother boys, I guess is what you'd call it. What do you think is the problem with a brother boy?
It's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't. Because if you have a little sister and you don't like her, really big red flag. But if you have a little sister and you like her too much, it's like, whoa. But I think older brother is ideal because they have a girl that they care about or woman that they care about, but they're not used to being babied. And so I think that that's like kind of ideal.
I've dated guys who've had multiple sisters, and I think guys with many sisters, that's different. I think that's much better because they have a more well-rounded understanding of women.
Yeah, this is the dating history equation. He came up with his own equation. Our equation is the more sisters, the better you are in bed.
The more sisters, the better you are in bed.
Yeah, the more sisters, you heard it here first. The more sisters you have, the better you are in bed.
The more sisters, the more likely to respond. The theory of relativity is basically when you have more sisters, you're more likely to text a girl back.
When you have more sisters, you give better head. I said it.
You're taking it extremely.
So I think the Nobel Prize is on its way. I think it's imminent.
I think you might be right.
Some big discoveries.
No, we're breaking ground right now for sure. And that's something that's interesting about Albert Einstein is yes, he's a genius, textbook genius. When you say you make fun of somebody for being too smart or a genius, you say, okay, Einstein, It's
true.
Yeah. So he is the figure of, he's the head of genius. He's the head of the Department of Genius. But the thing is, I feel like so many people were working on all of these theories about physics and relativity and time, and I feel like somebody else would have figured out what he figured out.
Well, there are certain things that were developed because of his initial discovering of theory of relativity.
That's true.
Further along,
consequentially,
there was a lot that was able to be made after the fact. But I think that I don't know if anyone else would have come up with quite that equation. One of the defining principles of Einstein's life was a love and sort of he was kind of a disciple of simplicity. Yeah. And I think that physics is obviously a very complicated realm and discipline. And he was constantly trying to come up with the most simplistic answers to things that he could find. And then as a result, he came up with groundbreaking information. Anyway, going back to him being a young co-ed, he went to Zurich Polytechnic as his undergraduate experience, and that is where he studied and
and he
learned math and physics. But really, that's where he met
Mileva, his first wife. She was 3 years older than him, and they started studying together when they were in school. So he was able to attract this very brilliant girl, also a physicist. And they developed a relationship, first a friendship, and then it turned into a relationship and a marriage.
Also, picture being Mileva. She's 3 years older than him, and she's the only girl in the class. And mind you, there's 6 or 7 guys. It's not a huge classroom, but she's the only girl there. I mean, at the time, it was common for education for women to stop at 14. So she's made it all the way to a university. Her parents had put a lot of resources into her being a physicist and mathematician. And then she shows up and this guy finds her charming. There was, of course, right? She's super smart, keeping pace with the men in her classroom. And what did everybody say about her? They said she was ugly.
She actually was not ugly.
She wasn't ugly.
I've seen pictures of her.
She wasn't ugly.
She was cute.
She had a limp, and that was led to people, deciding that. And also, she was smart, and she was in school, and so all of that together meant that she was considered to be not a fit wife for him, according to Einstein's mother. So, but he fell very in love with her because she was so smart and he could talk to her about things.
So his mom didn't like her.
That's
tough.
At all.
I feel like a mother's opinion is so important to a guy when, I don't know, she's somewhat in his life. Even if he acts like it doesn't, it's going to stay in his brain.
I think actually it was part of what caused their relationship to start is that not start, but I think that was some of the attraction in the beginning was that he liked her. He really got along with her. There's also a really serious, she was quite close to being his intellectual equal, which is not a relationship he ever replicated again throughout his life. And so he went to school, he met this woman, his mom doesn't like her. When you're in college and your parents don't like somebody, it's is there anything sexier? I don't think so. Especially because at that moment, it's
being
his
rebellious.
First real relationship. Yeah. But I do think that can lead to decay later on. Yeah. And then they eventually, spoiler alert, they divorced. And so they started dating, and his mother was super freaked out, got all whipped into a frenzy about the possibility of him marrying her. And they went on vacation, Einstein and Mileva, and she became pregnant. And so they were not yet married. Young. They were so young. She became pregnant. His mom freaking out.
Yeah.
Him, no money. Mileva knocked up. That sets the scene.
I'd be freaking out too.
He had $0 to his name. She was knocked up. They were separated. She went back and spent time with her family. She kept asking him to come back and A, spend time with her, B, send money. Guess how many of those things he did?
No.
None. She gave birth to a daughter that they named Liesel. They're still not married, so this is technically an illegitimate child. And this wasn't known for like a lot of history that they had a first child at all. And he never once went to go visit her. And he had quite some time to do it, but then she ended up, we think, dying of scarlet fever. But it's also possible that she was adopted by some family friends of his. And this was like a great shock to historians. It was only when their letters came out mentioning this other daughter that they realized that they'd even had a first kid to begin with. So he never met his daughter is basically the TLDR of that. And she might have continued living. She might have died from scarlet fever. We don't know. They ended up having 2 more children, both boys, Hans Albert and Edward. And eventually their relationship broke up when the boys were still kids. And that is where we get to probably the juiciest part of this entire episode, which is that when they were arguing over letter, of course, Trey Chic, Einstein and Mileva are arguing about as their marriage is crumbling. And so he decides that he should write a list of conditions. And he writes a list of conditions for his wife. Would you like to read some of them,
Let's
Annalisa?
go through them because that's tough.
This is part of our new segment called Real Thing That They Said. Last week, it was about Ben Franklin, who suggested to young men that when they take a mistress, it should be an older woman, because if you put their dress over their heads, you can't tell an older woman from a younger woman. Real thing he said. And this week, Albert Einstein's is this contract. Please read for us.
This contract, this crazy contract. Okay, so here are the conditions. You will make sure that my clothes and laundry are kept in good order. Okay, this is pretty standard.
I'm already out. Out.
Okay, you will make sure that I will receive my 3 meals regularly in my room. In his room?
Yeah.
That means he didn't want anything to do with her. You will make sure that my bedroom and study are kept neat, especially that my desk is left for my use only.
Mm-hmm.
You will renounce all personal relationships with me insofar as they are not completely necessary for social reasons. Specifically, you will forego my sitting at home with you, my going out or traveling with you, and you will obey the following points in your relations with me. 1, you will not expect any intimacy from me, nor will you approach me in any way.
Reproach me in
any way. 2, you will stop talking to me if I request it. You will stop talking to me if I request it. So if she's in the middle of a sentence, he can just at any time turn the lights off. Number 3, you will leave my bedroom or study immediately without protest if I request it. This sounds like what the Beast wrote for Belle in Beauty and the Beast. Just like, you will not come to my wing. At the 11th hour, you will never come to this section of the house. You will never ask me why. You will never read my books.
Wait, you're doing an incredible Beast impression.
You will not read my books that I can't read because I didn't go to school. You will not eat dinner with me unless you are beautiful tonight. It's kind of the same crazy shit.
Yeah, well, there's
Leave the West Wing.
There's a theme.
I'm done.
My takeaway from all of this is that this is why financial independence is important for women. And this is also why birth control is important for women, because Mileva essentially had spent all of this time studying math and physics. It's also important to note that when we're talking about Albert and Mileva at the time of their marriage, this man had no money
or prospects.
He's a burden to his parents. Spent 4 years after college trying to find a job, and he was looking to be sort of an assistant, like a teaching assistant at universities. But this is where him being sassy and kind of a spacey student came back to bite him, because no professors wanted to hire him. And also there was surely a string of anti-Semitism through this. So he was not hired for 4 years. So if you are struggling getting a job in academia right now, never fear, because Einstein also could not get an academia job anywhere.
In relationships, especially in the early stages of life, in your early 20s, being with a certain partner that lifts you up or inspires you, or makes you feel safe, encourages you, or anything, definitely can impact the rest of your life just the same way as your childhood does. And I think certain relationships where you've had just like, you know, reciprocated respect, and somebody has been telling you, like the closest person to you has been saying, you are a genius, I believe in you, I believe in you. Sometimes that can push you to actually do things you would have been afraid to do if you didn't have that person by your side. So being in relationships like can be a really great thing when you're young and you're scared and you're figuring out your life. And he did have that. He had the privilege, not only a very supportive family, but
she didn't have that.
Right. That was my point.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. We finish each other's sentences. He had that because she genuinely believed in him. And although he should have believed in her because she was a genius, if he had, God knows what would have happened. She might have been, you know, like, but that's what's sad to me. And a lot of women did not receive that kind of emotional support because that's kind of a role that women go towards doing. And honestly, to this day, a lot of girls still do that for their boyfriends.
I also think that this is something that we see often with first marriages and second marriages. I mean, we're even seeing it right now with Jeff Bezos, is that the first person is somebody who was with him at the beginning when he didn't have anything. He just had an idea. He wanted someone who's really his friend. They were equals. Jeff Bezos talked about like driving cross country with Mackenzie, his first wife, in the car. Like, this is a common theme that they start and they don't have a lot.
Yes.
And they are looking for someone who's really a friend, who can really encourage, and who's really an intellectual and moral equal with them throughout all of it. And then with Einstein, he eventually, to be clear, he married Mileva, and then they had the 2 boys. When he went to his second wife, who we'll discuss in a second, her role in his life was really that of wife, period.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
That was it. She was very happy to be a wife and nothing more. She was completely contented. And he was significantly more successful because this was after he discovered the theory of relativity.
So many men fall into this model. Like, extremely successful men had a partner, a beautiful best friend that encouraged them and was also a genius for their, you know, the early part of his career or whatever it is. And then, you know, he leaves her for somebody who's younger or whatever.
I think that this is a common theme, that at the beginning of their careers, when they are not yet discovered, when they are more unsure, men really want a partner. And then in the second half of their lives, when they are famous and known and understand themselves to be important, then they want a wife.
This happens more often than not.
Eventually, Einstein got a job. He was still married to Mileva. This is at the beginning, you know, in his 20s. He got a job working in a patent office. He couldn't even get a job as a high school teacher. He couldn't get a job as a teaching assistant. He finally gets a job in a patent office, reading through all of the inventions and appliances that are applying to be able to get a patent. And in some ways, this is like a perfect job because you have to sit there all day and think about how things work. Sort of more of an engineer's role. Right. But that was the job that he had. Spoiler alert, it made like no money.
Right.
Then when he was 26, that is when he originally discovered the theory of relativity, which is the E equals MC squared equation.
26 is a confident age for men, I think.
It is a confident age for men.
Right?
Is that also when your like Saturn return is it's around 26, 27?
I don't know about that stuff.
Okay, totally.
26-year-old men tend to be so excited. I think they still feel young and hot, and they haven't reached that, oh my God, I'm almost 30.
There's something about looking down the barrel of the end of your 20s of being like, okay, like what am I actually doing? And I think that was the case for him, is that he was like, okay, but he's a physicist through and through. And so mind you, he's like sitting at work. It's kind of the story of like a lot of artists. He's sitting at work with all of this boring paperwork on his desk. And then when people come into the room, he's like shoving all of the equations that he's been working on into his desk, which I think is charming.
No, he was such a diva and thought highly of himself, like celebrities, like artistic celebrities are now, like musicians and actors are, like, though he acted that way.
There has to be so much radical self-belief that what you're doing is important for any cause, for any amount of success. You just have to buy in, and he bought in. And for him, it wasn't, you know, about himself. He wasn't trying to be a celebrity, but it was about the physics that he was studying.
Isn't it interesting how at the time, like, you could be such a big celebrity for, you know, discovering various things, like being a scientist, whereas now I feel like that's
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah, but I feel like he's not as big as Albert Einstein was.
I also think in general, the very concept of celebrity has been completely diluted. Like, there's, you know, some
so
people
true.
that we would, like, people would mob the streets for, but also, like, in the case, I think it's more that now people would pull out their phones and, like, take a picture from far away. But there are so many more celebrities now than there were at the time.
But we still have the, you know, the Swifties, and, like, we still have people who have, like, kind of, like, revolutionized modern culture, like pop culture.
Well, it was just a different era in terms of what was considered to be important.
Exactly. Which is, like, fun. It's kind of fun that, like, celebrities
were scientists.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
I think that's cool. And he wasn't that ugly, which is tough.
I can't believe how hard you went in on Ben Franklin's looks just to say that Albert Einstein isn't bad looking.
He's not bad.
That's crazy.
I'm not talking about, I mean, like, think about the picture of him, like, sticking his tongue out at the paparazzi. Paparazzi were taking pictures of Albert Einstein. That's crazy to me.
It's crazy, but again, like, Albert, there's no way Ben Franklin is worse looking. Not that Albert Einstein even looks bad. It's just that, like, they are the same tier of men. Anyway, when he got married a second time, he was already involved with the woman who would become his second wife when he was ending his first marriage. His cousin. His cousin on one side of the family. No. His cousin on both sides of the family. His second cousin on his paternal side.
Oh, yeah.
And his first cousin on his maternal side. So, I mean, it makes family holidays easier, I guess.
It makes, oh my God. Well, I guess that was a little bit more common back then, but at the same time, that's nasty, man. Also, like, to go for your cousin after leave, like, it doesn't make sense after having a very supportive, like, marriage.
What's also funny is that he begged his first wife to divorce him so that he could marry his second wife, because he said that it reflected badly on her daughters, the girls who would become his stepdaughters, that, like, their mother was living in sin and not that she was fucking her cousin. So it was hard for Albert Einstein in order to get a divorce from his first wife, because after all the shit that she went through, Mileva was like, no, I don't want to do that. And the way that he eventually convinced her to give him a divorce is he said, look, Toots, I'm probably going to get a Nobel Prize soon.
Quote, unquote, like, word for word said this.
Quote, Albert Einstein, I'm probably going to get a Nobel Prize soon. When I do, I will give you all of the prize money from that Nobel Prize. And that was eventually the straw that broke the camel's back. And she said, okay, fine, we can get divorced.
Because she was like, hey, you got to get that bag.
you got to get that Nobel
I don't know
bag.
what to tell you, but that girl had her priorities straight. If she was like, yeah, I'll leave this loveless marriage where my husband's crazy and get, you know, some money out of it, it's the least I could get.
They ended up being able to be on amicable terms by, you know, the end of their shared lives,
because
which
she
is crazy.
him?
Because if a man wrote me a contract like that, like, this is what I'm saying, that's why financial independence is important, is that she had to continue to sort of, like, try to get along with him because he was controlling the money that was supporting her family, after he was like, make me a sandwich and make it 3 times a day, and when I'm done talking to you, walk out of the room.
I'm gonna make a list like that. I'm gonna make a list like that for my roommates. Do not come in the kitchen when I'm cooking. Do not start watching TV when before 8 a.m.
Don't speak to me when I'm done speaking to you.
And I'm going to put it on the wall.
Yeah. Well, you might find that relationship also ends the way that theirs did.
Like, he was, with all due respect, like, a genius in school, but he was a little punk. And he was, like, a bad student in the sense that he wasn't, you know, how he couldn't pay attention and misbehaved a little bit. Those were definitely the types of guys I had crushes on in, like, middle school. Yeah, dude. I was like, the guys that are passing the classes with flying colors, but just always in detention.
Oh, so that they were smart, but they were like kind of acting out.
But that was also me. Like, I was always in the corner. I think I outshined them.
The quietest kid in the classroom.
You liked the quiet kids?
Yeah. I liked the quiet kids with beautiful faces because then you can just project onto them.
Oh my God. I would create elaborate pranks with the guys I had crushes on for the class, and we'd punk the class. I was also very loud and always in trouble, so I think it just was, that was my, those were my buddies, those were my friends.
Right. I got in trouble. The only thing I really consistently got in trouble for in school was talking too much.
That's great. Well, you know what I feel?
Cut to has career holding microphone. Sorry, what were you going to say?
Okay, you know what I think? Earlier today, I was thinking that Albert Einstein would be the type of kid that in high school would wear like a suit to take the SAT for good luck.
I don't think that's true at all. I think he would have been the kid who only ever wore like the same gray sweatsuit, and you'd be like, has that ever been washed?
But you know those like weird kids that would be like,
I know what you're talking about, but I don't think that would have been him because he didn't wear socks. Like, I don't think he's putting on a tie.
Okay, so there were kids that would...
You just want to talk about these kids that wore suits.
No, he wouldn't actually wear suits ever, but like he would be like, yeah, I'm gonna like feel good about myself taking the SAT, and he would pass it with flying colors.
No, I think he would wander in 15 minutes late and leave 30 minutes early and like get the best grade, but he would be there with like unbrushed hair and like in his pajamas. You know those people who used to like sit in lectures in pajamas? I think that was more of his vibe.
I feel like he would have, those kids that would have a sling backpack? He would either have a roller backpack or he'd walk around with a briefcase.
No, I think he'd be the person who just like never knew where his backpack was. We used to, oh my gosh,
never knew what kids did you know that didn't know where their backpacks were?
No. You know who he would be? He would be the kid who pulled out his back. It's like we talked about this before, who pulled out a backpack and it's just papers. He used to write to Mileva and be like, oh, I forgot all of these things at the house. Just bring them the next time I see you. And it would be like his books, his papers, his sweater. He was like somebody who was constantly trailing behind me. There were all these stories when he was in Princeton about how he had to call and ask like where he lived again because his mind was so taken up by physics.
Good for him. He had his priorities right.
So he discovers the theory of relativity. Then he goes on to discover an expanded version of the theory of relativity in his 30s. And both of these things are what make him a celebrity.
Right. Make him a huge celebrity at the time. That was just a joke. I don't think he's hot.
I think you do think he's hot.
I don't know what to tell you. I don't know. He seems like when the type of guy that my mom would be like, he's a nice Jewish boy. Like, date this nice Jewish boy. But he actually secretly...
We should talk about that because Einstein saw himself particularly in the First and Second World War. He started to identify more strongly as Jewish, but not with any religious belief. But he started to identify because he saw them as a persecuted people.
Well, it's he had to leave Germany.
Yeah.
He did like strongly identify as a Jewish person once he got to the United States, and he like kind of had an identity and a reputation.
I also think it's worth touching on that Einstein had conflicting and often shifting views when it came to a Jewish state during that time. Yeah. And so he was brought around by a man who would go on to become the president of Israel. He was brought around the United States on kind of a tour. And that was like, my understanding is that was his first trip in the United States, was to advocate and fundraise for there to be a Hebrew university in Israel. What this meant for him, and for him, he was, largely there to fundraise for a school. And what this meant is that he did a speaking tour and a lecture tour throughout America, talking about his theory of relativity. So that was why he was there. And then his opinions continued to shift. He was extremely anti-nationalistic. And so he both felt like Jewish people deserved to have safety and respect, and also thought that nationalism was dangerous and it could be considered dangerous even for Jews. And he started to write about and touch on the fact that he was nervous about what it could mean for Jews to create an official state. So,
I mean, it's also interesting that like all of this power that he got from everything he invented and discovered gave him like the forced platform that he had to speak on his political beliefs and figure that out kind of on the spot, because it did influence politics at the time. So I don't know, that's just like a lot of pressure, like being forced into the public eye and being like, what do you think of this? Like, what are your takes on, on various political issues, when this guy just wanted to hang out and just do math in his room, but with undisturbed by his wife, of course.
I think that this is a constant. I almost think that was the case, and also it wasn't. On the one hand, he was constantly being berated for a quote on anything that could be considered even remotely within his wheelhouse. And then the other thing was that he also actively got involved. So, he would support people as they went up in legal cases. He spoke out on a variety of different topics when people were getting in trouble with the courts, and he would come in as a character reference, so he was also volunteering himself quite a bit on these issues. And so I don't think that it was just that he was like, oh, I guess I'm getting dragged in. I think he saw, particularly and probably partially out of guilt, in the second half of his life, he saw it as his responsibility to get involved in political matters. And so there were plenty of examples of this.
Do you think he liked being a celebrity? Do you think he loved the attention?
Or do you think it's the same thing as Ben Franklin, where it's like, oh my God, no, stop. No, I couldn't. No, stop. Like, no,
don't make me go and don't make me take a picture. Okay.
But I think that that's true for almost all celebrities. Like, they have this like, oh my God, I feel important. And also I can't walk through the street, and I can't go grocery shopping. And
do you think he was normal about it?
I don't think he was normal.
No, he wasn't normal. He was a weird guy.
So as he got into this marriage
picking his nose
with Elsa Einstein. Oh no, that's not her married last name. That's her maiden name, Elsa Einstein.
Yeah, she didn't have to change the name.
She didn't have to change her name when he married Elsa Einstein.
Yeah.
Then
what do you think of that? Guys that date their cousins.
Thoughts?
Any thoughts on that? Would you do that? No.
Depends on the cousin, am I right? No. Okay. Once he got married to Elsa Einstein, she was the doting wife. She was very happy to be a wife. She would even charge people for autographs and charge people for pictures with him.
Girl,
she
get that bad.
Doled out his daily allowance. She was like the house manager and his wife, and she saw that at her role, and she didn't understand the theory of relativity.
And
she didn't particularly want to. She saw her entire role to be a wife, which goes back to what we were saying about,
honestly, I kind of respect that. Just being like, I don't care what you're talking about. I don't want to know about your science stuff, but I will take your money and I will use it.
I think it's interesting how sometimes people gain their identity by proximity to an important person, and that was the case for her.
Sure, yeah.
And that's the case for a lot of people.
Like, if you're an assistant
to, she was a wag.
She was a basketball wife, and she loved it. Oh my God! Honestly, sometimes I think about that. Should I just do it? Should I just wear big hoops and sit courtside?
I don't think it's just. I think it's a lot harder than it sounds. I think it would have been easier to be the wife of Einstein than it is to be a wag.
I don't know, though. I feel like he might have had some rules, and they all have rules, I bet.
The other thing is that, he's now in the second marriage where he cheated on his first wife with her. You'd think he's satisfied, right? Surely everything is working out. No. He continued to have extramarital relationships, including with his secretary, and he even wrote her a letter in which she
classic.
Oh, so that's cliche. So cliche.
Like, we also have to let him do that. Like, that's
no, Annalisa, that's not the takeaway.
So he slept with his secretary. And at one point he wrote her a letter suggesting that she come and live in a house with him and his wife. Oh, that's fun.
And she said, I don't know if your wife would be into that. So
she said, I'm down, but you gotta talk it. So
she said, you gotta figure it out.
So I don't think he really valued monogamy. I feel like he'd be one of those. He'd be like the modern guy that does not think monogamy is real, or it should be, and it's like, why can't we have multiple partners?
He's the dude who's like on a date, and he's like, hey, so have you read The Ethical Slut? And you're like, man. He didn't believe that human beings were naturally monogamous. Yeah.
That is so silly. So he was horny, in other words.
But I think it's interesting. In the case of Einstein, he couldn't sustain an emotional relationship with one person. Why would you try to sustain an emotional relationship with many?
I think it was like a sexual thing.
Right.
I think he was just kind of a little bit of a hoe. He just loved to sleep around.
He just wanted to have sex with multiple people.
I think so.
Yeah.
Or at least like have flirtationships and have fun and just be single. I don't think he liked being tied down by anybody. I think he wanted to be his own person. Which is honestly, it's sad, but whatever.
It's like on the one hand, you don't want to be tied down by anybody, but on the other hand, you wouldn't eat if she didn't feed you.
I know. But
so there's that.
He thought he deserved it all in dating anybody he wanted.
I think also part of the problem, and this is the case with so many men, is it's not that they're thinking maliciously, it's that they're not thinking. And he wasn't thinking. He wasn't thinking about her feelings. He wasn't actually. And then if you press him or another smart man on these topics, because he's so intelligent, he can come up with a rationale of, I don't believe that people should be monogamous. But really what it was is, I want to do this and I'm going to. And that was true for many things in his life. He didn't go back and see his kids as much as he should have. He went on vacation with his wife instead of going back to visit his 2 sons, who he very rarely saw throughout the year. And there are all of these things like this where it's like, what it comes down to is that he did what he wanted to do, and he wasn't actually necessarily thinking about it. He was too preoccupied with his work or his thoughts or any of it. And so he just didn't necessarily consider it until the women in his life would get upset with him. And then he would be like, sorry.
And he's on the spot. You know, you touched on something interesting. Like, he was one of those guys where, you know, your friend might be freaking out. Like, oh, he hasn't responded to my text. Like, do you think he likes me too much? Or do you think he likes me too much, or do you think he doesn't like me at all? What do you think he's thinking? Do you think he doesn't want to see me again? Or
there's no such thing as liking you too much to not reach out.
Well, okay.
There's no such thing.
That doesn't exist. I agree.
But there's this idea where we suddenly start to extrapolate onto what men could think of, like, they're actually just so deeply intimidated by my beauty and my prowess that they're not reaching out. And that's not real, because, like,
we can tell ourselves
from the very basic, people can say hi, you know?
No, people can say hi. But what I meant by that was, like, I have, you know, friends that'll be like, oh, what is he thinking, that he's in love with me, or is he thinking that he hates me and doesn't want to see me again? Right. And then the truth is, usually he's not thinking about you at all. He's thinking about the boys. He's thinking about, what is he gonna eat for dinner tonight? Cold chicken. Like, it's just like, a lot of the times when you're like, what is he not thinking about? He doesn't like me. He's not thinking about you because he's got other shit going on.
Yeah, and also he's just not thinking enough thoughts in a day. It's not that he is. We all have shit going on.
Right. But Einstein, I think, was probably the king of not thinking about girl. Like, but I think the second wife probably was like, yeah, he doesn't not thinking about me once per day, and that is what it is.
She didn't take it as personally.
Exactly. But she knew his deal.
This is an interesting thing, is because with Einstein, you can be like, he's not thinking about me. He's thinking about the space-time continuum. You know, he's not thinking about me. He's thinking about how planets, how their orbits are affected by other planets around them. You know, he's thinking about gravity on a major scale. That's what you can tell yourself. And I think that part of the reason that Einstein was attractive to women, even though he was a bit of a philanderer and not emotionally like intuitive, but also just not that emotionally in touch and not that emotionally invested, is that when you comfort yourself, you can be like, at least he's thinking about something that led to a Nobel Prize, instead of like thinking about when he's going to play pickup next week. And so I think sometimes women go, or anybody, but no, actually not anybody. Sometimes women go for smart men, because if you're being disrespected by a man, at least he's a genius while he's doing it. He also was like, he was a bit smooth. Like, you know, we talked about the theory of relativity a little bit. Einstein came up with / introduced the idea that there's no such thing as absolute time, that it's relative, and to the people who two people can witness a simultaneous event differently and both of them can be right. But the way that it has been explained that he said this was in a quote that has been largely attributed to him, although he might not have said it in just this way. He said, "Put your hand on a hot stove for a minute and it seems like an hour. Sit with a pretty girl for an hour and it seems like a minute. That's relativity."
He loved the ladies.
Look, that got me.
Like, saying things like that, he probably did. And he probably was obsessed with women and sleeping around. But he did not want to be a boyfriend or a husband.
Well, that's going to be a theme. We're going to end up saying that 100 times. But I also think it's interesting that this is a theme that men can be geniuses and be not even unskilled, completely novices at having and creating a life. Like doing dishes, being a grown-up, administrative tasks, washing clothes, but they can be a genius, and so they can detach.
I feel like it's more often than not.
It's 100%.
The geniuses
and it's like,
are eating microwave
why
lunch.
do we think that geniuses can't also be kind? Because he completely had that potential within him, and I think a lot of it was him being let off the hook. Like when he was much younger and he was the father to 2 young boys, one time someone came into his office and saw him scribbling down equations while having a baby on his hip and another child crying, and he was able to focus, but he also had the kids with him. Like this idea that you can't be a genius and also be an adult or a citizen of society who's capable of like filing their taxes on time. I think it's true that they are conflicting skills, but I also think it's a way that sometimes we let men off the hook.
Yeah, we definitely will excuse them, which is crazy because a ton of women juggle having kids and having a family and doing all these things and having jobs. Whether or not being a genius is time consuming, like I'm sure it was everything he did all day. Obviously he was consumed by this, but people are consumed by life. Like he's busy, he's a genius, but people are also busy being not geniuses or just normal smart people.
I think in some ways he was a humble guy. He knew that his skill set was not interpersonal relationships. Like he was very aware of that, but again, it wasn't ultimately the like thing he was here to do. And I think the way that our society is now set up is that you can be a genius, but you also have to, we don't have households quite the same way, or at least middle class people don't have households quite the same way.
I don't quite think his whole like rugged look and very like his rugged look, his crazy hair, I don't think it was, oh, he's like so humble and he doesn't care about his clothes and shoes and he doesn't brush his hair. I think he was like that, and then people started acknowledging it and it became a brand, and then he hyped it up.
I agree.
And he was like, yeah, fuck yeah, my hair's crazy.
He saw it as a branding opportunity.
He looks electrocuted 100% of the time. And that's he's the mad scientist. He loved looking like a mad scientist. He thought it was hot and cool and everybody loved it.
Did he love looking like a mad scientist, or is our idea of a mad scientist based off of what he looked like? I think the very idea of a mad scientist with crazy hair is just a reflection of Einstein. Like if we think about Doc and Back to the Future, like these images of like a frazzled man coming out of a lab with crazy hair, that's just an Einstein.
Have you read Frankenstein?
No.
The crazy doctor working on Frankenstein has been, like, the picture of him has been painted as like somebody with electrocuted hair who looks crazy and frazzled.
Why can't you be a genius and have combed hair?
Turned into that guy. Yeah, he was an archetype, and then he turned into that. I don't think he coined it because he was like stumbling into this, life, and this is just who he is.
I think you can be a genius and have a relationship with hair gel.
But I think the geniuses that have a relationship with hair gel are murderers and crazy. Because if you think about it, when you like the ones with everybody who has slick back hair and uses hair gel,
not
is
a lot of
murderer.
Hair gel, just some hair gel. Anyway, I think it's worth noting that if Einstein were alive today, he would be completely horrified by the state of the world today. He was completely anti-nationalism. He was worried about the rise of fascism. He was worried about McCarthyism. He didn't like the idea that a state would be rounding up people. He didn't like that people wouldn't be able to criticize the leader of a country. I think that he would find a lot of the climate denialism really upsetting. Yeah. And also, like, while he might have been an important scientific figure, I think he would have found all of the Bezoses abhorrent.
Yeah, which is ironic because, you know, he had some similar patterns. We're going to talk about how you can find out if you are dating an Einstein. So this segment is called You Know You're Dating an Einstein If. So I'll start us off. You know you're dating an Einstein if you text a guy and he thumbs up your text and doesn't say anything else.
I don't even know if he would do. I think it would just be red
or thumbs up. But if it's like a question, it would be thumbs up, and you'd be like, "What?"
Yeah, it's not a yes or no question.
I'm a genius. I feel like if you were in an argument with him, you know you're dating an Einstein if you're in an argument with your boyfriend and he uses his own quotes and life experience as examples.
He'd be like, well, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree. Yep. Did he really say that?
I don't care. I don't know if I care if he said that or not.
It's also like if it's on a poster that's on teenage children's beds across the country, does it even matter if he said it anymore? Because it's so widely attributed to him.
Okay, so I guess also you'd know if you're dating an Einstein if he doesn't understand that you need to like go buy socks. If he doesn't think about that kind of thing.
If you open his sock drawer and it's empty.
If he has like one good pair of pants. I had an ex once who had one good pair of pants. He had another pair but it had a hole in them.
That's a lot of men.
I know. One good pair of pants and they wear them every day and you don't really notice.
Yeah.
Because you're too worried about them ghosting you.
Right.
But you don't realize. So if a guy is ghosting you, just stop. Wait a minute. Think to yourself, does he have more than one pair of pants? Because he might not have more than one pair of pants. And if so, you gotta calm down.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
I feel like you know if you're dating an Einstein if he's like, I don't want you to wear makeup. Don't wear so much clown. You look like a clown when you wear makeup. Like, you're so pretty without makeup. And then when you don't wear makeup, he's like, ooh.
I think it would be that he would tell you, don't wear makeup. You're so pretty when you don't wear makeup. And then his next girlfriend after you would have lip filler.
Yeah. You're so pretty, you don't need makeup, and then you walk into the room with no makeup, and he's like, whoa, is that Jack Nicholson?
I don't even think he would notice you that much. Jack Nicholson. Break while Annalisa laughs at her own joke. Okay. You know you're dating an Einstein if he says monogamy is socially constructed and that's why he keeps cheating on you.
You know you're dating an Einstein if he loves the idea of being low maintenance but is the biggest diva and the biggest brat.
Where you're doing all the maintaining of him.
You do all these tiny things he doesn't notice, but he's like, oh yeah, I don't need anything.
I think this one is funny. And Annalisa wrote this, so full credit to her. But you know you're dating an Einstein if he doesn't notice when you're upset but notices when a constant is off.
That's so true.
Incredible attention to detail for work.
But not for you, your emotions, your hair. Right. You could dye your hair blue and cut it short and he'd be like,
Okay, so what are our final takes on Einstein?
Like, my experience with Pisces has been, my life is so important. I have to focus on my life right now, but you're the best thing that ever happened to me and I want to be with you so badly, but I can't. Which is not real. And if a guy ever says that to you, I want to be with you, but I can't because I have to focus on work, he is not attracted to you. I'm sorry. I think.
Really? Do you think?
Yeah. I'm sorry. I think if a guy is like, I have to focus on my work right now, I can't date, he does not like you. Hot take. He doesn't like you. That's not real. I think he was okay looking, to be honest with you. I think he'd be a red flag for sure. Like, a lot of red flags. I think, like, out of 5 red flags, he'd be 3 red flags. 3?
Interesting. The problem with me reading a biography every week about these people is that I feel really attached to them by the end. And with this one, I'm like, I don't know. He had a really big impact on society.
I know you feel attached to him.
I feel attached to him in a, like, grandfatherly way.
Okay, so you would not have dated him. Would you have dated him? If he was young and your age.
I think that he I do find somebody who's like really wrapped up in what they're doing. I think that's compelling for someone to care a lot about what they're doing. But I also think it's important to look at somebody's dating history when you are considering whether or not to date them. And he was not on good enough terms with Mileva for most of their lives, for long periods of time, that I think when he was like, oh, my ex is being crazy, I'd be like, that's not going to cut it. I think I feel sort of protective of him as a historical figure, but I agree. It's not even controversial to say that he would have been a terrible boyfriend because he would have said that himself.
Well, then how do you think he would have been on a first date?
I think he would have forgotten. I don't think he would have shown up.
You're so right. He wouldn't show up.
He wouldn't show up, and then you would be like,
I'm done.
Really, you take it really personally, and then you'd see him in the news or something and be like, all right.
You would not have dated him because he wouldn't show up to your first date.
Yeah. But I do think that, like, I would have found him interesting and probably compelling, but I do think that, like, as soon as he asked me to make him food, I'd be like, no, I don't think we have a romantic future together. I'm so sorry to tell you that if you don't eat all day, because I forget to eat all day. So if he also forgets to eat all day, then we're both just not going to eat.
Oh, I think he would have been a burger boyfriend. Do you guys know about this? Right, you don't, because it's my theory. So there's a burger boyfriend theory that I've been developing for years. And so basically all of my ex-boyfriends have one thing in common, and it's that they will get very hungry, forget to eat all day long, very hungry. They get lightheaded. Oh my God, I feel like I'm going to pass out. They're so grumpy, so mean, so grouchy. Feel like they're going to pass out. I need to eat something right now. Okay. I need something really filling, like a burger, like a sandwich, or like a hot dog or something. You take them to the burger. Say it's a burger. It could be anything that's big. And you take them to the burger place. Put them in front of the burger. They eat the burger. It's gone in 5 seconds. They eat it so fast. And then after they eat the burger, oh my God, I feel so sick. I ate so fast. I ate too much. I ate so fast. Oh my God. Little burger brat boyfriend. All my exes would do this all the time. I think Einstein would be a burger boyfriend because he'd forget to eat.
I do that like 3 times a week.
Oh my God, she's a burger boyfriend.
I do that all the time. Low Boy in Echo Park.
She's a burger boyfriend.
That place has kept me going.
Seen you do the burger thing.
Yeah.
That's so, I can't believe I've never noticed that Katie's a burger boyfriend.
Yeah, 100%. Not eat until 6 p.m.
I've seen this in the flesh. One time at 11 p.m., you housed a burger at Low Boy. I remember.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
And I was like, oh my God, that was really nice.
It was an Impossible Burger.
What's my type in men? Guys that eat burgers way too fast and then feel sick afterwards.
And best friends.
Guys and best friends that house burgers so quickly and haven't eaten anything all day and then feel like shit and feel like they're gonna pass out because they ate the burger too fast. That's my type. Anyway, would I have dated Albert Einstein?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the question is would I have dated him. It's would he have been interested in me? And the answer is yes. He would have been in love with me. Albert Einstein is the type of guy that would be into me. For sure.
Clip that.
I don't know if I would have dated Albert Einstein because of the cousin thing really freaks me out. Totally. But if the cousin thing didn't happen, I think I would have, because I think he was funny and he was charming and he was a genius. And I think, I hate to say it, but I definitely would have been swayed by the genius in him. And I definitely think I would have maybe dated him for like 3 or 4 months and been like, oh wow, he's kind of a dick. He kind of definitely sucks. And then he would, it would fizzle out because he would, I would realize he's married. And then
you'd be like, I thought he was busy because of all of his work, but it's also because he's married. And then at the very end of his life, after his second marriage ended, he briefly had a relationship with a woman who was a Soviet spy. But, what are you going to do?
That is sexy as all hell.
The long story short of the Einstein episode and also dating history as a podcast is that you can have an incredible mind and be a terrible boyfriend. And in fact, that is the case for many men.
So join us next week.
Join us next week as we talk about one of the most philandering
presidents of the United States. Dare I say, the hottest president of the United States.
All right, more on that next week. Thanks for listening.
I'm Annalisa.
And I'm Katie.
And this has been Dating History.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Dating History. It's Katie here with the final fact check. I know the audio quality probably isn't great, so I'm going to make this fast. Mileva Maric became pregnant with her first child in 1901, making her 25, a teenage pregnancy. As said in the episode, historians don't know what happened to Liesl. She might have died of scarlet fever or been given up for adoption. Either way, she disappears from their letters after 1903. The pretty girl hot stove quote we mentioned was first attributed to Einstein in March 1929 in the New York Times, and then versions of it were repeated by other major publications, with some stating that that was how he told his secretary to explain relativity when asked. So there is no primary source of him saying it, but it was a popular story about him even then, and I like it, so I'm going to give him credit for it. It seems we were both right about the image of a mad scientist. The early ideas of that character came from Gothic literature, as Annalisa said, and as the trope was forming, it merged with the look of the famous Albert Einstein with his wild hair. Annalisa describes Einstein as looking rugged, which Collins Dictionary describes as having strong masculine features. So we're gassing him up today, I guess. It has been a popular story that Mileva helped him with his equations or his theories, as she was also a physicist, but I found no proof to support that theory, so sorry to everyone, because it would have been cool. Annalisa is the first person in history to ever describe Einstein as the Justin Bieber of his time. When Katie said the very specific phrase, certain things were developed because of his theory of relativity, what was meant by that was that E = mc squared helped to theoretically explain the physics of the nuclear bomb. And then on a smaller scale, GPS systems are programmed with relativity corrections. A tidbit we didn't get to in the episode was Elsa Einstein's daughter, Ilse, wrote to a friend before her mother married Einstein, telling the friend that Einstein actually was open to marrying either her mother or her. She wrote on the letter that it should be destroyed after writing, although clearly it was not. It's not known what conversations occurred after the letter was sent, but Einstein married her mother, as according to plan. There were 5 students in Mileva and Einstein's class, including the 2 of them. And the "if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree" quote that is often attributed to Einstein cannot be proven to have been said by him, which means there are posters in math classes across the nation displaying a lie, or at least a misquote. As stated, the trip Einstein took in 1921 to raise money for Hebrew University of Jerusalem was his first time in the United States. The man who invited him, who would later become the president of Israel, was Chaim Weizmann. After Weizmann died, Einstein was actually offered the presidency of Israel, but he turned it down. He once said, "My awareness of the essential nature of Judaism resists the idea of a Jewish state with borders, an army, and a measure of temporal power, no matter how modest. I am afraid of the inner damage Judaism will sustain, especially from the development of a narrow nationalism within our own ranks, against which we have already had to fight without a Jewish state." He said that in a speech to the National Labor Committee for Palestine delivered at the Commodore Hotel in New York on April 17th, 1938. It seems Einstein did call asking to be reminded the address of his own home, and he was seen walking around Princeton, lost in thought. There is so much more to learn about Einstein, so if you're interested in learning more, I highly suggest Walter Isaacson's biography, Einstein, His Life and Universe. It's also available on Libby, my favorite app. Thank you again for listening or watching this podcast. Our hosts are Annalisa Burns and Katie Massey. You can find us at Dating History on Instagram and Dating History Podcast on TikTok. Our podcast is filmed by Alec DeLand with sound by Sam Lederman and audio assistance by Gus Binney. It's produced by Paige Freeman and Rookie Media. Our biggest source for this episode was the Walter Isaacson biography, Einstein, His Life and Universe. This episode was edited and fact-checked by Katie Massey. Special thank you to the Los Angeles Public Library and the Octavia Lab. Please let us know who else you'd like to hear about in future episodes. You can send segment ideas and episode ideas to datinghistorypodcast@gmail.com. Have a good week. See you on September 24th when we cover another man who cheated on his wife. Bye!